With all of the hype surrounding the Nintendo Switch and its ability to provide both console and handheld experiences, I started to get concerned about the future of one of my favorite gaming devices of all time, the Nintendo 3DS.
Nintendo 3DS.
I hadn't owned a Nintendo handheld since the original Game Boy, so when I purchased the 3DS, I was incredibly happy with how far handheld gaming had come, and little did I realize how many great titles I would get to experience. Nintendo president Reggie Fils-Aimé recently stated that more 3DS games were on the way, and that it would continue to see oodles of support alongside the Switch. Now, whether I believe that or not, it made me think back on the wonderful games I've played over the last few years. If you're new to the 3DS or are looking to add in the future, here's some Wally recommended games to start with a little something for everyone. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. When I bought my 3DS, this was one of two games I purchased alongside it. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is an excellent game that adds to what the original title presented on the GameCube years prior. Dark Moon has a fun story and all the Luigi's Mansion goodness you've come to enjoy. As the story unfolds, you learn that the Dark Moon that keeps the ghosts at bay, well, it suddenly shatters. This renders the ghosts hostile, and it's up to Luigi to search through haunted mansions to find all the pieces of the moon and put them back together to restore peace, all the while sucking up any ghosts that may get in his way. The fun, dark tone mixed with bright, colorful sprites all plays alongside a wonderful tune that you won't soon forget.
Oh.
Fire Emblem Awakening. When mentioning the Fire Emblem series on the 3DS, it's so hard to recommend just one entry in the series, as they all offer a great experience worthy of your time. This portable strategy role-playing game takes the Fire Emblem formula and evolves it to include additional elements not seen in previous iterations, such as the ability to keep members of your party after they've been lost in battle. That wasn't an option on previous Fire Emblem games, so for those that like a bit of an easier playthrough or are new to the series, a break from permadeath is a welcome addition. Awakening showcases the story of Prince Chrom, who battles an army of undead soldiers who worship a wicked dragon. The game starts with Chrom laying unconscious in a field, left to wonder how he got there and who he was, and the story evolves from there. A fantastic game that would gain even more notoriety after Chrom was featured in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and the Wii U. Fire Emblem Fates. Fire Emblem Fates was an interesting release, but a wonderful journey of storytelling and choice. Fates was actually released in two different stories with Birthright and Conquest. Whereas Awakening told the story of Chrom on his journey, Fates tells the story of an unnamed hero who was born into the royal family of Hishido, but who was kidnapped by the Norians as a child early on in his life. Now, if you're confused by that, don't worry. Fates does a great job of explaining the story in a fashion that is easy to follow. The game eventually splits as you need to decide whether you follow the path of peace with your born family of Hishido, that's the Birthright game, or pledge allegiance to your adopted family of Nor in Conquest. Both games are the same through the first 5 chapters, but it's at the end of chapter 5 where you have to make a decision on which path you want to take. Obviously, that's decided as to what game you've got in your 3DS, but if you start with Birthright and want to play Conquest afterwards, you can skip all the way to the end of chapter 5. It's quite simple. There's also extra DLC for a third story called Revelation, in which you choose not to align with either family. Birthright's gameplay is easier and similar to Awakening, whereas Conquest offers a bigger challenge with less resources and less experience. Either way, both games are fantastic and both worthy of adding to your 3DS collection. Kirby Triple Deluxe. Kirby games were just meant to be played on handhelds, and Triple Deluxe is no exception. This release adds elements of 3D that Nintendo intended to be more prevalent on the system, with the ability to jump from foreground to background, for example. Of course, it's got all the great inhaling action that Kirby is known for, swallowing enemies and capturing their abilities. The game also takes advantage of the 3DS's gyro controls, implementing them throughout the game when pouring water from a jar, for example, or tilting a gondola. Now, I hadn't played a Kirby game since Dreamland on the Game Boy, and I was not at all disappointed with Triple Deluxe. Not only that, Triple Deluxe is, as the title suggests, it's 3 games in 1. There's also Kirby Fighters, which is a Super Smash Bros. Clone that adds Kirby Mayhem in a multiplayer fighting mode. Speaking of clones, there's also a rhythm game called Didi's Drum Dash, which is also a really nice addition. It's 3 games in 1, all of which are fun Kirby-inspired adventures and well worth adding to your library. Castlevania: Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate. While the Lords of Shadow series isn't regarded by hardcore fans of the Castlevania franchise, Mirror of Fate offers a 2D and 3D experience in a fun, challenging platformer. Alongside Dark Moon, this was the other game I bought when I first purchased my 3DS. And also, like Luigi's Mansion, I often played this game in the dark. There's something about playing Castlevania with no lights on that just enhances the entire experience. Mirror of Fate has you assume the role of 3 different members of the Belmont clan: Gabriel, Trevor, and Simon, the son, father, and grandfather respectively. If you enjoy the 3DS and its 3D effects, Mirror of Fate offers some really nice visuals. But, like most games on the 3DS, that 3D display might be a little taxing on the eyes before too long. Still, if you can stick with it, it's a really nice way to play the game. Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate often gets overlooked by many when discussing good 3DS titles, and I'm not sure why. It's another chapter in the Castlevania series, and the first game I ever finished on the 3DS. Tetris Ultimate. Now, just for good measure, I had to throw in a Tetris game, and why not? Tetris Ultimate is a fine addition to the series, and while it's not quite as good as Tetris DS, it's definitely worth your consideration. For me, the biggest draw was the ability to play multiplayer online against other opponents. These races against each other provide an additional challenge to the already great gameplay and just reinforces the fact that Tetris is a universal game that anyone can pick up and play at any time and enjoy. The only downfall with the online feature is that these days, it's hard to find someone to play against, let alone multiple online opponents. Still, I'm a believer that you should own Tetris on any Nintendo console, and while you can grab Ultimate on other platforms, its true home seems best suited for Nintendo handhelds. So there you have it, a handful of Wally recommended 3DS games to get you started with the handheld. There's many more I could mention, and maybe I will some other time, but for now, what are some of your favorites on the 3DS, and what would you recommend to people picking up the console for the first time? Leave your recommendations in the comments below and let me know what some of your favorite 3DS titles are. That's it from Wally. Thanks for watching.
Konnichiwa.
Here we go!